Good evening.
Good evening.
It's at least 6:30. It's 6:31 by my clock. My name is Helen Matheny, and I'm a member of the task force, and I just want to welcome you all and thank you for coming out this evening. I'm going to let my colleague introduce himself and say a few words of welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe White. I'm the Executive Director of the West Virginia School Service Personnel Association and also part of the PEIA Task Force. Also, I would like to announce tonight that Senate President Mitch Carmichael called and asked me to let you all know that he couldn't make it this evening and that he apologized that he couldn't make it up here.
Thank you, Joe. So we are interested in listening and making sure everyone feels as though they have been heard tonight. We are live streaming the program tonight. Over here, the governor's office is live streaming. And so when I call your name, if you would please come up to this microphone so everyone can hear you and so that folks that are watching online can hear as well. I think we'll just get started. Joe mentioned he's with the school service personnel. In my day job, I work with WVU Health Sciences, and we are all volunteers that have been appointed by the governor to the 29-member task force. Joe and I are part of the outreach committee. There are 2 other committees, and we have a session Friday night in Morgantown, a listening session, and there's a session Saturday in Martinsburg, and then the final session will be in Charleston next Monday night. I want to encourage you, there's a PEIA Task Force Facebook page and also a website. So the website is peiataskforce.wv.gov. And so if after you leave here this evening, if you think of something else that you'd like to share with the task force, please go online and provide your written comments that way. Or if you have a friend who wasn't able to be here tonight and they want to provide comments, I encourage you to let them know about the website as well. So with that, we'll get started. And I want to say, please bear with me if I mispronounce your name or I can't read the writing. We're going to start out with Rick Starn, please.
Hello, I am Rick Starn. I'm from Marion County. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak concerning my thoughts as to what might help in resolving some of the problems associated with the financial difficulties being experienced by PEIA members and the taxpayers of West Virginia. I'm going to talk about my family's experiences. I think I just said that. I've got that written twice. Number one, a few years ago, PEIA implemented a policy of having members send in an annual physical report. In compliance to this policy, my wife and I had our physicals. The doctor's office sent them in, and PEIA sent them back to us. We checked them over. They were filled out wrong by the doctor's office staff. We corrected the paperwork and took it back to the doctor to have them resubmit the corrected reports. The doctor's office sent them in again, and they were sent back again from PEIA. It took the doctor's office 4 tries to fill out a simple form correctly, even after they were shown their mistakes. Number 2, my doctor informed me I was due for a routine colonoscopy, covered 100% by PEIA according to the plan. I called PEIA to confirm the 100% coverage. The representative verified it would be covered 100%. After the colonoscopy, which reported that I was 100% clear, I started getting bills from the hospital. I contacted the hospital to dispute the charge. The hospital said the colonoscopy wasn't coded as a routine colonoscopy. They said I should call the colonoscopy doctor's office to get the coding corrected. So I did. It took 4 months and numerous calls to get the coding corrected so that I wouldn't be billed for something that was covered by PEIA insurance. Number 3, my adult son, who was also a member of PEIA, hurt his shoulder in a four-wheeler accident. He went to the UHC emergency room. The doctor failed to diagnose the shoulder dislocation, and my son suffered from terrible pain in spite of medication, which was an opioid. For 2 weeks, my son suffered until he went to Fairmont Regional Medical Center and saw a different doctor who immediately diagnosed the problem and sent him to Morgantown, where the shoulder was relocated and ended the shoulder pain. Number 4, it was my son's misfortune to need medical care again. While camping, my son was bitten on the ear by a raccoon while sleeping outside. He went to the emergency room, received 4 stitches in the ear, and over a 3-week period, received 4 rabies shots. His bill was almost $10,000. Number 5, once again, my son went to the doctor for pain and weakness in his wrist due to an old injury. The doctor's office took an x-ray, then sent him on to UHC. At the hospital, he was examined and told that he needed an x-ray. He told them that he just had an x-ray at the doctor's office. The hospital told him he needed another x-ray. He asked how much an x-ray would cost. The hospital worker asked him if he had insurance. He told them yes. Then the worker replied, "Then why do you care what it costs?" He said, "I may not have to pay for it, but somebody does." My son then went on to ask if the hospital could get a copy of the x-ray from the doctor he had just come from. The hospital worker said the systems weren't compatible and he would have to get his x-ray done at their facility. For the next 20 minutes, calls were made to numerous people throughout the hospital facility, but no one knew what an x-ray cost. Number 6, my wife had been having a lot of pain in her thumb joint. In her own words, this is her experience. On Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2017, at 11 a.m., I had an appointment at the UHC Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. The purpose of the appointment was to get a diagnosis for the chronic pain in my left thumb joint. After examination and x-rays, the doctor's diagnosis was arthritis in the joint. He prescribed a daytime hand brace be worn to restrict the joint from moving so as to allow the joint to rest and recuperate. The brace was made at UHC in their occupational therapy department. Problem number 1. The doctor told me I could have it made there for approximately $20 to $25 or buy it on the internet for around $80. So I elected to have it made at the hospital. PEIA sent me a benefit statement that showed in their explanation remark codes not covered. I ended up with a patient responsibility of $81.39. The doctor had also prescribed a nighttime brace that was to be worn to keep the joint immobilized during sleep. I had to pick it up at the UHC checkout center. Problem number 2. When they handed me the brace product, I observed the item code number on the box looked peculiar. The code began with R. When I took the brace out of the box to observe it, they had given me a right-handed brace instead of one for the left hand. I brought this to their attention and they corrected their mistake. PEIA sent me another explanation of benefits. It detailed that this type of service, nighttime brace, was not covered under the plan. The $256 that was billed by Heiner Prosthetics Orthotics for the L3809 RT brace would be the patient responsibility. Soon I received a bill statement date 6/29/17 from Heiner Clinic for the adjusted amount of $179.11. Problem number 3. I was appalled and angered by the price of this Velcro brace, thinking surely any box store would sell this type of product for around $25. So I went online to explore what this brace's value actually would be. I discovered an identical Velcro brace for $24.99 plus shipping and handling for a grand total of $35.08. I called Heiner Clinic on July the 7th, 2017 expressed my dissatisfaction with the price of the brace product. I told the employee that I would be happy to pay $25 for the product, but I would not be price gouged with their excessive fee. I told their representative that I would be happy to speak with the manager. She told me that Chris, the manager, would probably call me. Within 2 hours, Chris did call me. I expressed my dissatisfaction with the price of the brace product. Now, it did not line up with the price one can purchase the same product for online. His explanation for the cost: if you had a mechanical problem with your car, you would take it to a mechanic. He would evaluate the problem. The auto part might cost you $25 to repair. Then there would be the cost of time for the mechanic to evaluate the problem. And then there would be the cost of labor to repair the car. It's just like that. You went to see the doctor. He had to diagnose the problem. He took x-rays. He prescribed what needed done. And you have to pay for the part, the brace. The Hanger Clinic bill was to supplement in covering the overall cost. I retorted, I have already paid my portion. Doctor's fee, $40. The x-rays, $66.44. Occupation therapy brace, $81.39. Diagnosis, $17.89. And I do not intend to pay for them twice. Chris, Hanger Clinic manager, told me that if I was unhappy with the cost of the brace, that I could bring it back to the clinic and he would have the charge removed from my account. I informed him that I would do just that. On July the 10th, 2017, I took the brace back to Hanger Clinic in Bridgeport, West Virginia. The office worker had the return form ready for me when I arrived. I signed their return form and handed them their brace. I ordered the brace online from Magento for $35.08. Problem number 4. On August the 9th, 2017, I received another billing statement from Hanger Clinic for the amount of $179.11. Hanger Clinic had not removed the fee for the returned brace. I returned the statement to Hanger Clinic with a note written on it that the item had been returned to them, and I attached a copy of the return form and requested them to please not bill me again. Problem number 5. However, on September 12, 2017, I received a phone call from a collection agency out of Columbus, Ohio, in regard to the outstanding balance of $179.11 due to Hanger Clinic. I explained to the caller a short scenario that the brace had been returned and that my account was supposed to have been credited for that amount. She requested I fax a copy of the return form to her. In the meanwhile, she would note that the account was under dispute. On September the 18th, 2017, I took my copy of the Hanger Clinic product return form back to Hanger Clinic's office in Bridgeport, and it's a good thing I had a copy because they did not have their copy on file. I told them my displeasure of receiving a collection agency phone call on a product that was returned back on July the 10th, 2017, and for which I was to have been credited. I told the office worker I would not leave until I had in my hand the receipt of a credited balance. She took care of the matter in my presence and called the collection agency and had the delinquent billing charges expunged from my credit history. Unfortunately, these 6 examples weren't the only times my family members received poor, inadequate, overpriced, or downright terrible service from the medical community. My family's experiences with the medical community may not be typical, but on the other hand, they may be very typical. In a recent Joe Manchin political TV ad, a father was telling about the death of his daughter. The daughter had gone to a medical facility for treatment. The doctors and medical staff were told 8 times that the daughter was a recovering addict. They still ended up prescribing an opioid for her and discharged her from the facility. She died from an overdose on the opioids soon thereafter. Can either of you tell me what studies have been done in West Virginia to determine why, where, what kind of, and how many mistakes are caused by doctors, hospitals in West Virginia, and what the medical insurance is doing about it, and what steps have been taken to reduce their mistakes and lower healthcare costs? To the task force, the legislature, and the governor of West Virginia, I would like to say, PEIA members and the citizens of West Virginia do not need a change in who pays for our insurance and medical bills. We need a better healthcare system with less mistakes and lower prices. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak. And may I give you copies of this?
Yes.
Thank you, Rick. Our next speaker is Joe Oliverio.
On first, the lady of the house. Follow second.
Good evening. My name is Paula Oliverio, and I've been teaching for 32 years and a member of PEIA throughout my teaching career. About 7 years ago, I came down with fungal pneumonia. I came down with it not once, not twice, but 3 times. My physician believed that I was actually getting this from school. Took me off work, we did breathing back and forth. The school system said it's not possible that I'm getting it there, again, because you can breathe anywhere. I'm hoping you can take a nice, good breath right now, and you're not having any issues. Because of the issues I have then, I also had 3 students come down with this same fungal pneumonia that school year. But again, they're saying it could not have come from school. I have permanent lung damage and have to go every 2 weeks for shots and will need to do so for the remainder of my life. I must fight with PEIA every July when we start a brand new year. They don't determine it medically necessary, but yet there's not someone on the PEIA board that's making that decision that's a medical doctor. Sometimes it has taken me up to almost 6 weeks to get it corrected before we can get back into getting my shots. By that time, I have spiraled down so severely and have a very difficult time just doing day-to-day chores because I don't have enough breath to sustain and continue on. But yet I work every single school day. PEIA changes sometimes throughout the year. We get it from CuraScript because it's a specialty pharmacy, and we were getting it through Breovia. Breovia, absolutely no problems. It was going very smoothly. But mid-year this year, they changed back to CuraScript again. But because they changed back, CuraScript believed I needed to start my pay all over again. It is a constant battle. Every month, they have to call me to see if it's okay to ship out to my doctor. I can't always take a call because I'm a teacher. I'm a first grade teacher. I'm not always able to take the calls. If I don't answer their call, I'm delayed 2 weeks in shipment, of which, again, if I don't have it, I start spiraling down. So now, my principal is aware that if I see the call coming from CuraScript, I take the call. I've been sometimes, once they call me, been put on hold for 40 to 45 minutes once they call me. My students in my classroom have gotten very adept to just hearing the music play in the background while I continue on teaching because I just put it on speakerphone and continue working. Trying to take care of the billing issues that come has just been a total nightmare. It's not something I asked for. This isn't a medication that's a non-necessary medication. It's in order to breathe. I should not have to fight every year to be able to breathe. So I know there needs to be a funding source that can take place for PEIA. I beg and plead for that. I need to be assured that when medical doctors are saying something is medically necessary, it's not being denied. I have actually had to go to PEIA with my major book that I have of information from the doctors to sit down with them to say, look, this is what's happening. So thank you very much for listening to me. My husband was up first, so he let me speak so I could give you my medical part, but he also has some of the other sections that he deals with because he has to take care of the financial end. Thank you.
Good evening. As she said, I'm Joe Oliverio, the second part of this duet. Honored to be a retired West Virginia educator with 34 years in. I'm now working in Ohio. I'm under their insurance plan. And in 8 short months, it's been amazing the difference of the 2 plans and the ease with which it is to get medical coverage and medical care in Ohio. And that's sad because I stand here before you as a Mountaineer, not a Buckeye. Everyone's going to talk about a funding source. And just like with our own family and our own budgets, we have money set aside in reserve that we can throw at that emergency washer that needs repaired or that roof that leaks. But that's an emergency repair. That's not a fix. And somehow the state legislature, taxpayers, everybody needs to find a way to fund PEIA, not fix temporarily PEIA. And I think with everybody working together, that would help. And that's a benefit for you all being here to listen. Going back within that time, PEIA was given overtime as a benefit for reduced pay, for reduced this. And people were content to take a smaller salary because they knew they had the benefit of the health care. The teeter-totter is flipping the other way right now, and that's where it's becoming difficult, and that's probably why this spring there was the anger and the angst that was with that. As my wife said, and most of the people in here, they're educators, whether they are service or professional. They are educators. They're working with our youth. And the time it takes to inform, dispute, and rectify is difficult at best. Because they want to teach. They want to work in the schools. The other thing, PEIA hours are not conducive for this profession. Because we are not a 9 to 4 or an 8 to 3:35 time frame. These educators work before school and they work after school, and when they get home at 8 o'clock, they're trying to get their family life going. They don't have time to get on the phone and reach somebody that's not there. So then you run into that 30-minute lunch, 30-minute plan, which anyone in this room knows that's probably closer to a 20 and a 20, and sometimes a 15 and a 15. So if you're put on hold, you have no ability to try to do it, and it's a continuous cycle. And I'm sure that if there were some studies out there for that, probably the stress level of education combined with the stress level of rectifying and trying to do PEIA is contributing to lost service over time. The other thing, doctors, and I'm sure with any type of business, there needs to be a check and balance. But if a doctor's recommending X, and that's not what is prescribed in the plan, why is that? Who is making that decision? If your primary care physician is saying this, and just a quick example, if you're out running on a basketball court and you tweak your knee, you've got to go to your doctor. The doctor says you got to go get an x-ray. Naturally, the x-ray is not going to show anything, so that was a cost that was wasted. Then you got to go get an MRI. There's so many places to get that, which I found out at Caldwell, Ohio, an MRI is approximately $400 to $500, whereas most of the ones in the state are $4,000 to $5,000. So you have a difference there. In Ohio, we get to pick and choose where we want to go because we're paying for it out of our plan. So naturally, you pick the lowest one. Then you go to the orthopedic. then the orthopedist says you gotta have surgery, then you gotta get that pre-approved, then you gotta get that. So over a course of 4 months or so, you're walking around in pain because you had to go through these 6 hoops to get to a place that you already knew. And if you were fortunate or unfortunate enough to have the left knee operated on 6 years ago, when the right one goes 2 years ago, you kind of know what's in store. So why do we have to start back at square one and work our way to square 6 when we already know it's torn and it needs repaired? Living in Parkersburg is very interesting because we can see Ohio from where we are. We can see Marietta Memorial from where we are. A lot of times in Parkersburg, they refer you to Columbus. They don't refer you to Morgantown, or they don't refer you to Charleston because that's the connectivity that they have there. But our family does infusion therapy. Marietta was the closest one. That was out of state. They wanted her to go get shots in Charleston because that's where the closest one was. Well, naturally, as an educator, you can't take off a half a day. So you had that issue going when you can see the hospital right across the river. Due to some unforeseen surgery that didn't go quite right, we needed a specialist. The specialist was not in Charleston. They referred us to Morgantown. That involved another surgery for her that did not work because that specialist wasn't there. Eventually, 3 surgeries later, we end up in Columbus, where they wanted to send her initially, and where we got some relief. So think of the cost that was associated with Parkersburg to Charleston to Morgantown to finally Columbus. So those are the kind of things where if your doctor is saying this is what you need, why should you not go with where it's needed? And if there's an issue, I think PEIA or the health profession needs to take care of the health provider and say, you're doing it wrong, not throw us in the middle of that game. As I said, we're educators, we work excessive hours, we don't have time to do all the calls. In closing, as a citizen, not a taxpayer, as a citizen, I have a right to choose any goods and services that I partake in. Tonight I chose Dairy Queen instead of Wendy's. As citizens, why do we only have one choice with PEIA? I would imagine Blue Cross Blue Shield, Brixton, any variety of other companies would love to come into this state and bid on a process for the 200,000 employees that are covered under PEIA. And I bet if it was a competitive bidding war, just like we have to do in a school system from everything from shingles to restrooms, thank you, you would have a competitive, fair market value for a product, and if the product was unsatisfactory, there wouldn't be a need for that company to provide it. Another company would step up. And that's everything from our automobiles to everything. But when we sign a contract, we get PEIA. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I thank you for the time and dedication that you've taken to this, because as we've all said, it's great to finally have somebody that's listening. And I noticed the signs were a listening tour. We don't expect answers today, but we're honored that somebody's listening. And hopefully back at that large task force, the results will help benefit the thousands of people that depend on it in the future. Thank you.
Can you hear my question?
Yes, sir.
You talked about Ohio, how the transition was easy.
Yes, sir.
It was a better policy.
Do you know, do you know right offhand what the name of that company is that does the insurance in Ohio? Because it's not the first time I've heard this.
I'm with the Warren Local District, which is in Washington County. So they use UMR, which is a part of like UHC, but it's not our UHC in Clarksburg.
Okay.
And I'm even happy to tell you that it was cheaper for me to do an individual plan over there than it was to continue the family plan in West Virginia to be with my wife. So she's individual here, I'm individual over there, and I'm 1/2 of the cost that she is as an individual in West Virginia.
Okay. And that's the reason I asked the because this is not the first time that I've heard that personally. I've done a lot of these
Yes, sir.
listening tours, and it's just, it's amazing. And I will have to agree with what you said. Normally I don't make a lot of comments, but surely to goodness, with 233,000 participants in PEIA, there shouldn't be this many problems. Shouldn't be this many problems.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for your comments, and thank you, Joe. We appreciate listening to your concerns. Okay, I'm looking for Charlie, and I can't read the last name from,
Middleburn.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
DeLauder.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, my name is Charlie DeLauder. I'm a retired teacher, and I'm here tonight representing the WVEA Retired, the Tyler County Association of Classroom Teachers, and I'm also the immediate past president of the West Virginia Education Association. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come out to speak to you this evening. As I said, I'm here as a retired teacher. One of the things that retirees appreciate in West Virginia is the fact that we are offered Humana coverage, and I would certainly encourage that this arrangement continue. Humana offers a dedicated team that contacts members and providers to resolve issues. In fact, PEIA can take some lessons from Humana. This team also visits retiree groups to answer questions and offer guidance. Humana offers reduced costs because members stay in a group plan. Anytime you try to go to an individual plan, as I have heard that vouchers may be a offer in the future, it needs to make sure that there is a large enough group so that the costs can be shared equally among us. Humana also offers a better coordination of care, which lowers the hospital readmit rates than the traditional Medicare. More days at home, and it increases the odds of survival. Humana also offers a Silver Sneakers program, which needs to be expanded in the locations so that it can be offered to more to make it easier for us to participate. Right now, I have to drive 35 miles to get to a facility that offers a Silver Sneakers program. We all know that a more active beneficiary will reduce the cost of insurance because it will not take as much to keep us healthy. The program that was put forth to improve our health was put forth as a punishment rather than an incentive to be able to do that. If we don't meet our goals that you set for us, then we get punished by higher premiums. And personally, no matter how hard I try, I'll never meet my weight goals. I weigh 280 pounds. I'm supposed to weigh 173 according to the Metropolitan Index. Maybe 6 months after I'm dead, I'll be able to meet that goal. But it'll probably be too late for my insurance premiums at that time. Increased activity will only occur when there is incentive and not a punishment. Retirees pay a larger percentage-wise than the active employees do. We cannot allow this to continue. Retirees live on a fixed income that 80% of us have never had or received a cost of living increase. There are approximately 34,000 retirees in the state of West Virginia in this system. That 85% equals 28,900 people that have not had any type of adjustment in our retirement benefits. This is about as much as a fixed income as you can get, unless you pick up an extra job somewhere else. We've dedicated our lives to the betterment of West Virginia and should receive the best care possible. Again, I want to thank you for the time and thank you for your efforts in achieving a better PEIA for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. I appreciate the handouts too. And if you see us shaking our heads, at least I know I'm shaking my head a lot, is because we're hearing some things, we're hearing themes, we're hearing trends around the state, yet every place that we visit, we hear something new. So it's good that we're hearing common thoughts and at the same time some new ideas. And again, if you guys have ideas for funding streams too, please be sure to share those with us. Our next speaker is Leanne Barnes.
Thank you for being here today and giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm a teacher at Bridgeport High School. I've been teaching for 12 years. What I have to say is not dramatic, as some of these that we've heard so far. Thank goodness I've never had any major illnesses to deal with in my family, but I think my case is probably more typical of the working class public employee in West Virginia. 3 things I'm going to focus on today are co-pays for urgent care, co-pays for specialists, and pharmaceuticals. First, urgent care. I understand that PEIA as a whole is trying to minimize visits to urgent care and encourage all members to have primary care physicians. However, it's unfair to have $50 co-pays for urgent care when sometimes that's the only option. Weekends, holidays, after hours. When it's not an emergency room situation, but your PCP can't see you on a moment's notice, and you really need to be seen by a physician. $50 co-pays for urgent care should not be across the board when there are so many situations when their use is warranted. Second, specialist co-pays of $40. If my PCP refers me to a specialist because that's where I will receive the best care, why should I have a higher copay? For example, if I need surgery, obviously I have to see a surgeon. A surgeon is a specialist, $40 copay. That makes no sense. Third, pharmaceuticals. Again, I understand PEIA is trying to hold down costs. One way by doing that is only allowing the least expensive drugs. However, there's times where some people have to have the most expensive drugs because the other ones don't work for them. My husband falls into one of those categories. When you take a more expensive drug, you have to jump through hoops like you would not believe. And then if you don't refill exactly on time, they threaten to not refill it for you. They harass you. They want to know, where have you been getting this medicine all this time if you didn't refill it? Just because you missed a dose or two during the 90 days since you had it refilled before. If you have a problem from your doctor, getting the refill from your doctor, then you fall into that situation. Let me tell you a little story before I wrap up. I had minor outpatient surgery last fall. The total bill, hospital, doctor, and pre-op testing, came to a little more than $13,600. Let me say that again. Minor outpatient surgery. I came home the same day, $13,600. As some of these people have said, there is something wrong with our system. Of that, I only owed $970. I am thankful I have health insurance. However, I don't know about you guys, I don't have $970 laying around to put on that bill. I don't have $970 laying around for anything. I haven't been on a vacation in years. So I called the hospital and set up a payment plan, of which I am still paying on. In the meantime, other bills are rolling in that I have to tack on to that. So it just keeps squeezing us every time we get a bill. Some of these people with extreme health care problems, you have my heartfelt sympathy. I don't know how you do it. Because even with these problems that we have, which are minor, it gets extremely difficult. My point in talking to you today is to help you realize when you look at the numbers, they aren't just numbers. Every copay, every deductible represents a public employee and will have an impact on that person's life. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but I'm thinking about the people in this room who have serious problems. It may not seem like much, but as I have pointed out, and these people have, and more behind me will, it really does add up. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Next speaker is John Taylor.
Hello, my name is John Taylor, and I am the Region 2 Director for the West Virginia Association of Retired School Employees. And I would like to speak to this listening tour once again. I have spoken twice before at other meetings, but I'll be brief and I'll try to cover some different issues. For one thing, I want to emphasize quickly that retirees don't get raises to fund the copays, deductibles, maximum out-of-pocket amounts, and premiums. All of these have increased in recent years, and the reason for that is that as medical inflation keeps going up, most of those costs get pushed onto the retirees, and the state doesn't pick up their share of it. Some retirees have been retired for a long time. Inflation has eaten away at their pensions. Not only that, copays and deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, and premiums continue to go up. And so their costs continue to go up, and their pension or their income did not. In view of those things, we think that PEIA for retirees should not only be frozen, it should be rolled back. Now the question's been asked, how do we pay for this? Let me make a couple of points about that. Over the last decade or so, hundreds of millions of taxes have been rolled back in this state. The state has lost hundreds of millions of dollars of income through tax decreases. It seems like the legislature has been more interested in reducing taxes than they have been in paying the bills for the people who worked for them for years and years and years. Now, the answer to that is, to my way of thinking, a variety of tax increases so that the burden isn't all put in just one place. So that the taxes should be increased across the board somehow in a way that would not put the burden in one place, but not put the burden on the retirees and the public employees. That's where the burden is coming now. The state isn't taking care of their fair share of the increase. Now, let me go over a couple of ideas here. And, you know, one of the previous speakers alluded to the fact that retirees' premiums are not supported the same way the active premiums are. And that's a truity. And I realize the active premiums in part go to retirees. But basically, when you think about a retiree that's covered under Medicare, approximately 80% of their costs are covered by Medicare. The state only has to cover the other 20% or so. Of that, 69% comes from the state and from the actives premiums, and 31% comes from the retiree. That means we don't get an 80-20 split. We get a 31% split. When you compare the whole thing, the Medicare amounts and the amounts that the actives put in and the amount the retirees put in, the state only puts in about 11% of the premium costs for retirees. And even with that, they don't keep up with medical inflation. And the co-pays, deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, and premiums keep going up for people whose incomes do not keep going up. So with that, I'll leave you, and I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope this PEIA Task Force does a good job and comes up with some, not just a simple fix for PEIA, but some tax support for PEIA. Pay for it. Don't just fix it.
John, I have a couple of questions for you, please, because I've been hearing from retirees across the state. And in some instances, I know that we have folks who retired in the 1990s. Do you know off the top of your head, like what is an average retiree pension for those individuals?
Some of them, now I don't have exact figures, but the one thing I have is that the lowest paid pensions among the ones over 90 were like less than half of what people who were retired more recently are. So a lot of those people are getting somewhere around $1,000 a month, and that's it. Some of them even less than that. There are some retirees that get no more than $500 a month. Depends on when they retired, how long they worked, and those aren't easy answers. But the fact remains that the people who retired long ago retired on, and their pension is based on incomes of long ago as well.
Right.
And those folks really have a tough road to hoe. I met one lady a few weeks ago that was 102 years old. Imagine how degraded her income is by inflation and pension increase or premium increases, not pension increases, because she hadn't gotten very many of them.
So I wonder if John, you and Charlie, maybe if you all could provide me a fact sheet about, you know, the average number of retirees and what their pensions are, and just I'd like additional.
We can try to get something for that.
I would appreciate that if you could research that, and I can give you my card. You can email it, and we can take a look at it.
We will do some research.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
If you could as well, because I've heard this in other counties, about what the average premium would be for retiree. And the reason, John, I asked you, I've seen you at several of them, but I think I heard a lady the other day that she got about $1,000, but her premium was like 500 and something. So she has really no sustainable income to live on. So if you could provide what the average premium was for the retirees, I'd greatly appreciate that.
I'll do some research. Thank you.
Thank you. And this kind of goes, I think it was Leanne that you said that, you know, putting a face on these issues, and it's just not numbers. I think that's a really important point, and that's something that I'm hoping that we might be able to get, not names of people, but just stories, examples of if a person who's been teaching for 20 years, and just show the numbers in terms of what you're facing day in and day out. I think that would be very valuable for all of our task force members to know. Maybe an example of a person who's currently teaching and someone, maybe school service personnel or whomever, retirees as well. I think just actually putting a face on the issue is really important. That was a good point. Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Norma Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Norma Taylor. I'm the Secretary for the West Virginia Education Association of Retired School Employees, a Director for West Virginia Education Association Retired, and Vice President of Harrison County Association of Retired School Employees until June 30th. Then I'm President. I'm a retired educator who has consistently represented 30,000 plus retirees at our yearly PEIA hearings. I've never missed one. I have left early one time because women's basketball was playing. I go every year and it's the same story every single year. Most of us work for this state that paid us the lowest of wages when compared to the other 49 states because we love West Virginia and its students, not the money. Our insurance, given in lieu of a pay raise, was good coverage. And we were promised that it would continue after we retired. However, after completing 13 years of retirement and never receiving a pension increase, I have seen my monthly pension decrease due to the increased premiums, the increased co-pays, and the increased out-of-pocket expenses. Retirees do not receive any increases. Most of the 30-some thousand have never received an increase. As John said, the lowest pensions were raised, and I think that was a long time ago, I can't remember the year, but they were raised to $500. So some of our people are receiving that. A former governor once told a retiree, "You knew what you were going to receive when you retired." He's a senator now. And that is true. But no one told retirees how the goods and services we need would increase in price. We see it happening daily. It requires a choice of groceries or medicine for many retirees. The legislature promised to fund PEIA. They did it from the beginning. They did it after we struck in 1990. But most years, they failed to put the money in the budget to do it. And they say there's no money. However, especially in the last several years, they've given enough money away in tax credits to more than take care of PEIA. A severance tax on the oil and gas industry could provide a dedicated funding source for PEIA. VARS, West Virginia Association of Retired School Employees, suggested that. We had a bill, and then in March, it sort of got lost when all the teachers, of whom I'm very proud, went out, and it was 55 strong, 55 united. And I hope those of you who are still active don't forget that in November. It wouldn't drive our response to a couple of people who we mentioned that they needed to raise the severance tax, said it would drive the companies out of the state. It won't. They spent too much money in the state to leave it without extracting that gas. All you have to do is drive down Route 50. They've already invested too much here. Retirees are pleased with the services of PEIA provided by Humana and want that to continue. And as I listen to the actives, even though we're here about ours, I think we're much better off. Humana takes care of us. They provided program components that we feel have reduced costs through member education, rebates, and coordination. Their employees are available and willing to help the members. In fixing PEIA, please continue our association with Humana. Several years ago, someone mentioned bidding on contracts. Several years ago, Humana did bid for the privilege of serving the retirees, and they do a darn good job of it. Please remember the approximately 6,700 retirees who are now over 80, and the 1,200 plus retirees who are over 90. These retirees can least afford any more increases, and I'm getting there more quickly than I want. Most retirees cannot afford higher costs. Instead of increasing the premiums, the co-pays, and the deductibles, we need them rolled back at least to where they were before the co-pays and deductibles were doubled. It didn't make a lot of difference to me at the time because I wasn't seeing a lot of specialists. But as you get older, you need those people, and it makes a dent in what you have to spend. Use the resources this state has to fund PEIA and its loyal employees and retirees, instead of giving those resources away to outsiders, as West Virginia has consistently done down through the years. We need to have learned some lessons from giving away the coal. Our percentage severance tax here is much lower than that in surrounding states. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Norma. And again, if you want to email us with additional information, statistics that we can take back, if there's additional information, I'm happy to, I know Joe and I are both interested in that. We'll take it back.
What's your email? You have an email?
I do. It is helen.21@frontier.com. Our next speaker is Jenny Santilli. Thank you.
I'm a world language teacher. I can help you with pronunciation.
We needed you on.
I'm a proud teacher for 38 years, 36 in this great state. And I want to talk a little bit about something a little bit different than the nuts and bolts that we've heard so far. One of the things that I've noticed is a decline in some of our employees across the board. And that is because insurance was seen as a benefit. It wasn't just a benefit, it was like, okay, I can take the salary because I know I can afford health care. And where I've seen this affected is with our electricians. They can make more in the mines, they can make more with Marcellus. I've seen it in our bus drivers. I do teach in a state that isn't as diverse as it could be. And so one of my favorite trips was to take kids to the Spanish night dinner cruise in Pittsburgh. And depending on how many snow days we had, sometimes we would also go to the Incline, we would go to the Carnegie museums. And I can't do that anymore because we don't have enough bus drivers, and I would have to pay several $100s for a private coach to drive up to Pittsburgh for the day or the evening. And I can't even do that anymore because, and even my garbage service is affected personally because they can make so much more money driving for the oil and gas companies. But the next thing breaks my heart. And some of my colleagues are here and they'll tell you I am just a nerd with a capital N. I love what I do. It's not a job, it's a calling. And because of that, I've worked with student teachers for years. And that motivated me to spend my own money and get a doctorate because I want to teach teachers. And for the past 38 years, I've talked to students and said, have you ever considered teaching, and not just Spanish, just elementary, shop, math, science, art, whatever. And in the past, those conversations would be, really? Me? You think I can teach? And I said, yes. And we would have a conversation. The past few years, have you ever considered teaching? Nope. End of discussion. Or even worse, well, that's my backup plan. We don't need backup teachers. We don't need backup bus drivers. We don't need backup electricians. We need people who want to be here because they care about our kids and they want to contribute and make this state better. And so don't just think of this as something that the bean counters have to do to save money. It's so important that you do this so I can teach teachers to teach. Thank you.
Jody Johnson is a maybe.
Come on, Jody.
I'm Jody Johnson. I'm an ECAT in Pleasant County Schools. I'm service personnel president for probably 20 plus years, and I've worked in the school system for 37 years. Everything that I came to kind of talk about today, everybody's kind of touched on. I've had this passion for the school system for lots and lots of years, and I agree with what the lady just said. I've been really blessed with good health, but when I was 42 years old, I lost my soulmate to cancer. He died when my kids were 15 and 18. But at that time, we had Super Blue insurance, and we could go about wherever we wanted to go. It was awesome insurance. I didn't have to worry about what was paid and what was not paid. I didn't even think about that at the time. We got to go to Columbus. After he was gone a few years, I remarried, and within the last about 8 years, my husband had some heart issues. They allowed us to go to Columbus. We didn't have to go do all the runaround. That's been about 8 years ago. We did a couple of ablations. Everything got fixed. It wasn't too bad. But over that time, we would go to state meetings, and we'd hear PEIA people. Josh Thor would get up, and he would talk, and he would say, you know, if the legislature doesn't start funding PEIA, we're not going to have any money anymore. He said, we have a reserve with this many millions of dollars in there for, like, if your hot water tank goes bad at your house and stuff like that. But when they saw that chunk of money there for emergencies like we have today, where they say there's no money to fund PEIA, that money would have been there. But they underfunded it, and then they didn't fund it, and now there is no money, and there's a big problem. And I'm just telling everybody stuff that they already know. But down the road, we really need to think about, the last time there were 700 and some professionals that have openings in the state right now. We have never been highly paid. Our teachers have never been highly paid. Our service personnel have never been highly paid. But if you had that passion for your job, the money that you got for your insurance, and like for me, when I retire, my years accumulated. I can buy insurance or years service. Young teachers and young people that come to work for the state now, those don't do them any good. So it's going to cost our county more, our counties and our state more money to pay if somebody's sick, the substitutes, and so this is not just PEIA. This is a whole thing that's going to bring qualified educators and service people to our kids. This is going to affect our grandkids and everybody. So we really need to think about our health system nationwide is screwed up. All this stuff about where you to run around, they give you on everything, is ridiculous. But if we don't find a constant funding source to take care of the problem, it won't make any difference what we do if we can't pay for it. So I agree, that's why I put maybe on my paper. Everybody's kind of hit everything that I was going to say. I agree with the severance tax because they don't need to break West Virginia anymore. They already have over the years with timber and with coal. The gas is there, we can use it. They're already tearing up our roads. So let's tax it to use for PEIA and take care of the roads and to take care of our grandkids. So I appreciate you letting me talk, because I'm just reiterating what everybody else has said. But if you love your schools and if you love West Virginia like you do, then we need to be in Charleston. And this room should have been, I mean, I made a fool of myself so many times over the past week or two to get people here. We're from Pleasant County. this place should have been packed as much as in Charleston. There should have been hundreds of people from Ritchie County and Doddridge County packing these hallways. And what I'm afraid of is if we don't do it now and back off, we're going to have to do it again. So I guess I don't know if I'm talking to you guys, or I'm talking to you guys, or I'm talking to everybody else. But we need to go back and drag our people in because it's important, not just for us, for our retirees, because I'm only going to work 1 to 3 more years, and then I'm going to be one of you guys. But and my mom already is. But it's our kids. It is the future of our state is at risk, and it's up to service and teachers, I think, right now to make the difference and make it happen.
Thank you, Jody.
Yeah.
Randy Marple, there's a question?
Yeah, I talked to her.
Okay, good.
Where does, you said you work for?
I work for WVU Health Sciences.
That's part of the trouble. Every sign I see on every hospital, WVU Medicine. When one company runs the show, you pay the price they tell you you're going to pay. I don't know who let it happen, but on every corner it should be, they want to know how much the x-ray was, it should be posted. X-ray this, broken arm this, that kind of stuff, as best as you can. And the other part is, like they were saying, the cattle barons and the legislatures and the governors have robbed this state for 125 years. That's right. The coal's gone, they better start taxing oil and gas and get something out of it. Thank you.
Carl Boone.
Carl, I think, Carl Boone.
Yeah, Carl. Okay, maybe he's not okay. Chris Combs.
Please let me introduce myself. My name is Chris Combs, and I'm running for the West Virginia House of Delegates. And I'm here to listen to your concerns, and I'm here to, I guess, irritate you, motivate you, and get you back to the 55 strong. I speak to you as a union electrician. I'm a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 596 out in Clarksburg. I am running in a majority Republican county jurisdiction, District 6, but I am here to try to educate everyone to let you know how in the last 4 to 5 years, how our tax base has been changing from a corporate tax toward an individual tax. In the last 4 to 5 years, we've had tobacco tax, alcohol, cell phone taxes, your property taxes in Doddridge and Tyler County go up. Our license fees for our vehicles went up. We had the road bond, and I'm just naming the ones that they're changing over, and they hit everyone by a penny or a nickel here and there, and it adds up. In 2015, we had 2 taxes. One passed and one failed. Senate Bill 419 was the volumetric fee, and it took $110 million out of our budget. That was on an average of 56 cents per ton of coal. Senate Bill 705, it passed the Senate with 1 Democrat, and the rest was Republicans that voted to reduce the severance tax to 3%. And they were, I mean, if you see what that is for 56 cents on coal, that's just giving you a heads up. Doddridge County, and I can tell you Doddridge County, and I have done my research, In 2015, they produced 365 billion cubic feet of gas, and that's one county alone. Tyler, Harrison, Wetzel County are all the ones, and Ritchie County are the big producers of our natural gas. I'm asking you, and I applaud you all, because I stood on the picket line with you ladies and gentlemen in Tyler County. I come down here to visit the ladies and gentlemen in Doddridge County, and I stood in the rain with you in Charleston. I'm not a fair weather individual politician. I am one that's done my homework. I've been going to Charleston for the last 10 years. I've been watching our delegates, our senators vote against the working class. And it's not one party or another, it's individuals. When we have individuals that sit there and tell you, and tell our teachers here in Doddridge County that they're going to vote for this raise, and they did vote. Yes, they voted to table your raises. And that is 60 individuals that kept doing this to you all. To the state employees, to your service employees, I'm asking each and every one of you, educate the students, educate the parents. Please, we need change. Just like several people have said, our roads, our service personnel, our teachers, your income is going down and they're chipping away at you one nickel at a time, regardless if it's your cell phone bill or your gasoline that goes in your tank. I'm asking you, please motivate, remember in November, and get out and vote, please. Thank you.
Jan Phillips.
Changed my mind. All of my speaking points have already been addressed.
Okay. Jim Campbell.
I'm Jim Campbell, Harrison County. My wife works for the board there. Many years ago, I worked as a bus driver 40 years ago or so. At that point, the pay was nothing, but the insurance was tremendous. I mean, it was a perk that was worth the job, actually, you know. And since then, they have tried to increase wages so that a bus driver wasn't a part-time employee where they could make it a full-time. But if all your pay goes to health care, that kind of defeats the purpose. So most times everyone is talking about funding, but I think we really need to look at where the costs are as well as funding, because you need to look at pharmaceuticals. When some of their employees or some of their upper echelon is making millions of dollars, and yet we can't afford our basic necessary medications, that's not real fair and equitable. I know my wife and I both have medications that we've been on for 30 to 40 years, and same dosages, nothing's changed, we're not abusing it, but yet PEI requires us to go to a doctor every 90 days to have it checked out. Half the time when we go to try to pick up a prescription, they put a hold on it for some reason. Nothing's changed in 40 years, but yet all of a sudden, we're addicts, according to them, I guess. They just constantly throw bureaucratic stumbling blocks in the way. It wastes our time. The doctors, any of the good doctors hate the system because it wastes their time as well. They have to jump through hoops as well. They can't prescribe what they want. They can't send you to an out-of-state facility for the care you need because it's just not in the plan. I know that, well, let's see, some of my wife's notes here too, I'll try to decipher them. And part of the problem is, there is definitely epidemic of drug abuse throughout, but they should not penalize people that have legitimate uses for them. And I don't know what the deal is. They seem to make it pretty easy for the abusers to to get their fix. But we can do that. Like someone else touched on about the co-pays and stuff, if you do have an urgent need and there's no your primary care doctor, or even some of the clinics are not open, you have to go to the ER, and there you are really soaked for it, and quite often with really bad results in Harrison County anyway. I'm not too impressed with UHC, and I'll agree with the other guy. I don't know that being affiliated with WVU has helped things any. Usually the problem with government business, the bigger it gets, the worse it gets. They just forget about the common man, and that's pretty much the end of it. It's all the bottom line. And we do not need people that are making decisions for us that are pencil pushers. We need the doctors or the medical professionals. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Jim. Our next speaker is Laura Lee Modisett.
Hello, as she said, my name is Laura Lee. I currently teach at Doddridge High School. I've been here 15 years. The thing that I want to bring up tonight is during the work stoppage, the only way I could get anybody to listen to me, as far as delegates or senators, is by the key words, fiscal responsibility. If I heard it once, I heard it twice. So I started thinking, they only respond to fiscal responsibility. So how can I play on that? So oil and gas severance tax, that was a theme, and that's what we talk about all the time. Well, it kept being dismissed, like she said, it was tabled. That's something that we know here in Doddridge. We know oil and gas. I also know all the benefits of oil and gas. Many people have jobs that have been pretty consistent, and that's providing a lot of income from our community, and I'm very grateful for all of the contributions they make to our schools and our parks. Yes, there's a lot of negativity that comes along with that, our roads and out-of-state workers that aren't committed to the community and things like that. But there's a lot of blessings that come along with that. But fiscal responsibility, that's what I kept hearing. So if we are going to be fiscally responsible, I was thinking, you know, how can we actually do that? So I went to the PEIA hearing in Morgantown before the work stoppage actually occurred. I emailed and called on my legislators excessively. They know me by name, and I talked to them in the car, on speakerphone. My kids know them. They know their voices now. So I did all these things to prevent having to do the work stoppage, but we had to go through the work stoppage, obviously. We survived that. But fiscal responsibility. And at that PEIA hearing in Morgantown, there was a gentleman there, and he clearly had a science background. And his name was Mr. McElroy. I don't know who he is, but I was so impressed with him. And if anybody here today has contact information for Mr. McElroy, I don't know who he is, I just heard him. I was so impressed with him. He had really done his homework on oil and gas. And I live here in oil and gas country, but you know, I don't really understand it. I'm a social studies teacher. I don't get the ins and outs of all of that. I'm not experienced with that. I'm ignorant to that. So when we say oil and gas severance tax, okay, that sounds great, but what exactly does that mean? And why do they just keep dismissing it? So I did a little more homework, and I saw that a lot of our delegates and senators reap benefits for connections with oil and gas companies. And I can also understand that because they have a campaign that they need to, you know, they have to run, and I understand there's expenses with that. So if our severance tax is, you know, if that's just going to be dismissed, why not flip it and make it a more positive thing like Mr. McElroy was saying at the PEIA hearing in Morgantown? He said, why not give incentives to oil and gas companies to keep the oil and gas in West Virginia? I'm not a scientist, but I listened to him and I thought about it, and he said, and you can correct me, and maybe Grady could help me, I don't know, he seems to know science stuff, but I guess there's a possibility of 9 byproducts that can be produced from oil and gas, and the byproduct could be something that's manufactured here inside of our state. So if we want to be fiscally responsible, why are we not taxing them at a very high rate? I know we lowered it. Why do we not up that tax to something like 12 or 13% if it's going outside of the state? But if you keep it in West Virginia and a byproduct is being produced, then West Virginia tax base is increased. If the West Virginia tax base is increased, we have more money here. And then let's give them a huge rebate. Actually, don't charge them any taxes, I don't care, if we have the other tax base, the 2 different pools of money. So yes, okay, severance tax, I'm for that. And I know that we have wet gas versus, dry gas, and the difference between, I don't really understand. But I know we have it and many other states don't have it. So if we have something that's more valuable than what these other states have, why are we comparing what we tax these companies as if they have the same product that we do? They don't have what we have. We have something they don't have. And they are playing on our ignorance. Okay, we are ignorant. I am a social studies teacher. I don't understand that. But I'm trying to understand. But if wet gas is so valuable, why are we just giving it away? So yes, I know coal was a big thing, and we've already heard about that, but they did the same thing with our timber. We've been raped of our timber in West Virginia. It was sent to North Carolina, manufactured, and then we pay a much higher price for furniture up here than what we should if we produced it here. So why do we have to send it away to get it back? Why can't we encourage fiscal responsibility, is what I heard over and over and over. Well, let's be fiscally responsible, and let's create more job opportunities based on the 9 products, or byproducts, or whatever I think I heard correctly. But that's what I have to say, and I don't know enough about it. I am ignorant, but you can be ignorant with me, and we can research together, and to become better at understanding how we are being taken advantage of. Because that's also a theme with Appalachia. I mean, poverty. I mean, that's what, we're taken advantage of because we don't know. Well, let's know so we can stop that. The other thing I want to say is I've taught for 15 years. I graduated, my undergraduate with less than $5,000 worth of student loans. That's pretty good, But then my master's degree, I was encouraged to get it. You get a pay incentive. I wouldn't have had my job. I beat out like 8 other people just because I had the master's degree based on the old criteria for getting hired. But I'm paying $165 a month for student loans, yet my premiums going up, my deductibles and all those things. So I'm paying for my master's degree $165 a month. My husband is a police officer and he has student loans. We won't even talk about how he screwed up in his job line because he didn't even need that to be a police officer, but whatever. He's educated. And he pays $135 a month. And so we're both public servants. And yes, there are lots of people in this state that get their loans forgiven. But every time I call, and I call every time it comes across my desk, a paper or a phone call, I'm always inquiring about loan forgiveness, but I don't qualify for that. So if young teachers, because I've been teaching 15 years and I want to consider I'm still young, I guess maybe I'm not, but if you want me to stay, I'll be paying my student loans until I'm 47. And because I'm paying the bottom line, because the interest rate on them luckily is low, it makes more sense for me to pay on my house or my cars where the interest rates are higher. We are making them. We've never deferred our student loans, ever. We've consistently paid. I don't understand how people can't put the two together, that if you want teachers to stay that are highly educated, because I have a master's, if you want us to stay and you're not going to pay us very well, you're not going to forgive my student loans, but now they're just, the answer is we don't need education anymore, because that was the big deal, you know, just hire anybody, you know. So now it's a huge slap in the face for me. So if you're not going to give us health insurance, I'm going to leave. I have to leave. That's going to make sense for my family. Or I'm going to leave the profession. I'd make a really good secretary. I think I would, for an oil and gas company. I would be really good.
Ma'am, I absolutely don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to stay here. And so often on this tour, I have said things that I probably shouldn't have said. But as I've listened to these stories tonight, they're not really unusual from what we've heard around the state. Some things are different. I have left these meetings actually crying with some of the issues that I've heard from people. A lady the other day, it just broke my heart that she'd been fighting for years and nobody will listen to her about her daughter's medicine. And the daughter's 11 years old, and it's unreal, the story we heard. And I promised that lady that I will, and she emailed me her story, that I'll personally deliver her story to the PEIA Finance Board, not the task force, but the Finance Board. And I told her that I would. But some of the other stories that I've heard, and I do like to give props to people. Probably with your presentation tonight, it's one of the most eloquent presentations I've heard on the reason for the fiscal responsibility of the gas tax. I thank you for that. Actually, what I would like to do, and it's very improper for me to ask you to do that, the entire task force will be in Charleston on the 11th, and I would like for you to be there if you could. I would really like for them, the entire task force, to hear that. And I will say this, I'll get in trouble again, I always do. But the very reasons for the stories in this room, where's the lady that said she went to the years for the PEIA public hearings? I as well went for years at those public hearings. And I'm sure you are like myself, we seen a need for help. We began to ask for help over and over and over, and all they told us was, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. And look where we're at today. Look where we're at today. And I signed up for this Public Outreach Task Force for a very important reason. Number one is I want to hear as many stories as I can. Some of them I can't hardly handle, I'll be honest with you. I've gotten mad at some of these meetings, and out in my car, talking to myself. People on the road probably thought I was nuts, the way I was talking about some of the things that went on. But there is a need. There is a need. And I thank all of you. I'm just rambling on, but I thank all of you for your stories. This is what's going to take. I have got about 7 ideas that I want to introduce to the rest of the task force. Where they'll go, I don't know where they'll go. I know that my colleague here is one that is very dedicated to listening to the folks, and she gets it. She's like myself. She understands what you all are saying. And I know she's got ideas that I think would be beneficial. So I'll show them. The 11th is, I do personally invite you, if you can, come down there and give your story.
Chris Hilvers.
Did we get it right?
I'm really messing up your name. I apologize.
You're fine. I don't want any heckling from you. All right, thank you for hearing us, and thank you for taking the time to come down here. And I work with Laura Lee here at Douglas County High School. And just like her, I'm right about halfway through my career. I'm about 15 years in. I'm the biology teacher here, and I do enjoy my job greatly. And a couple of things that I really just want to touch on is like 2 common things. Number one is choice. I think as public employees, not just teachers, and it seems like teachers are the ones that are taking up the battle. It seems like teachers are the ones that are, pushing this issue. But you said you work at WVU. Recently, my daughter, she had to have her eyes fixed. She had one cross eye, and we were thankful to go up to WVU, up to Ruby, get it fixed. The guy was great. His insurance was PEIA as well. So I'm assuming that everyone that works in the hospital is PEIA. Is that? No? So they have a choice then, right? Okay.
I don't know how it works. My friends work in a different section, and there's two different things up there. I don't know how it really works.
But they have a choice, right? Okay. As teachers, we have zero choice. We are locked into PEIA. If they increase our premiums, we have to pay it. I have 4 children now. We have 1 on the way, and whatever they charge, I got to pay it. Same thing. If I go to, and the gentleman back here, he mentioned it too, we live in Pennsboro, so if I take a left, I go to Parkersburg. If I take a right, I go to Clarksburg. And now, there used to be 2 hospitals in Parkersburg. Now there's 1. And now it says WVU on the billboard. And I don't have a choice. If I take a right, I go to UHC, it also now says WVU on the billboard. So when we go in, we get charged, for a well child checkup. We get charged if we go into an emergency room visit. And so we have to answer questions to, an intern. We have to answer questions to a student. And so WVU is getting paid for that person to go actually be educated on how to be, a physician or a nurse. Then we have to answer those questions. They're paying WVU. We also have to listen to a regular physician. They're getting paid. And WVU seems like they're in this for just strictly making money, and there's no choice for us. We have to go there. And, again, how do I put this? There's no transparency with that either. Whatever they charge is what we have to pay. So when we go in, for birthing, we pay what they're going to charge. Again, that's a common thing. We don't have a choice and there's no transparency. Another couple issues I'd like to address about PEIA is whenever you call for questions about benefits, and just a recent story from us, a lot of people have been sharing their personal stories, is we sent in our yearly reporting plan where I have to go in and I have to get my weight. They have to take my blood pressure. They have to take all these different measurements, sugar levels, all this. And we sent it in certified mail through, the United States Postal Service. We received back confirmation that they got it. Then when this year's cycle came around, I was going to renew, and they said, well, we didn't get your last year's forms. I said, whoa. I gave you our last year's forms. We sent it certified mail. No, you didn't. And so, we had to go through a huge process, had to go to our family physician, had to go to down to and find our records. Luckily, my wife, she keeps everything. And we had to prove that, we did these specific tasks in order to get the coverage, not just that, we're already paying for, but that we deserve. And, these are extra hoops that we have to jump through. And then I have to jump through them again. And then when I call and say, hey, I've got this card, hey, it's from the post office, they are very, very rude, and they are almost like you are to blame for any issue that comes out. And, we've learned to send things certified mail. We've learned to make copies. I mean, there was a gentleman, the first gentleman that spoke here today, he had dates, he had times, he had set. We have learned that we have to do those things in order just to get them to do what they're supposed to do. And we're paying a heck of a lot more for them to do it or not do it, depending on how you look at it, too. And so, again, it just seems to me that we're paying a lot more for less of a service. And it's really not even a service, it's more of that we're doing that, or they're doing us a favor, whereas we're the ones that are actually paying their salaries. We're the ones that are actually, you know, forking out that extra money, and now we're having to pay more for that. So again, the big thing to me is, you know, we just, as educators, we don't have a lot of choices of who our coverage is under. And when we do go get you know, some sort of service from a healthcare provider, we're now given one choice, and that's WVU. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Chris. Our next speaker is Geraldine Beckett.
Don't want Geraldine in the room. Thank God my health is pretty good. So I'm not going to be here to tell you about a bad experience I've had with PEIA, but I am going to implore you to do what the right thing is, and also to try to get rid of the ridiculous procedures that are designed to delay or deny. We know that all insurance companies have delay, deny, delay, deny. That is PEIA. I don't know who runs it or who owns it. It's no different. And you would think that if a company is being ran by the state that it is serving, the people that live there, that it might be a little bit of a different temperament to it. But it doesn't seem to be that way. I want you to take heart in the examples from our neighbor Ohio, and in what you're hearing these people say who need help. I'm praying that the teachers, service personnel, and all public employees vote in November to put the people in office in West Virginia that care more about the people in this state than about their campaign contributions and kickbacks from lobbyists and gas and oil. I agree that gas and oil is exactly where some of this money should come from. We know that Republicans like tax breaks, but in this case, it's hurting a lot of people. And it's been going on for too long. We got Carnes out, now we want Blair. I want you to take back to Blair, take back to Jim Justice, the flip-flopper, and any other person on our way, or in our way, on that task force. Tell them if they don't fund it, that we can and we will resist again.
Thank you, Geraldine. Have I missed anyone, or has anyone decided they would like to speak, that maybe they were a question when they came in? Yeah, come on down.
We'll get her and then we'll get you. Just tell us what your name.
Hi, my name is Luann Campbell. I'm from Harrison County. I just have one thing to say. Taking Cleveland Clinic out of the picture has really hurt a dear friend of mine. He has porphyria, and it's really bad. He has it internally and externally, and all he is getting is defeat from insurances. He cannot go to Cleveland Clinic anymore. He has to go to WVU. He had a doctor, a well-renowned doctor in Cleveland Clinic that was actually helping him. It's a life-threatening, there's no cure for it, but he can maintain his health in Cleveland Clinic. He was doing well there. Now he's setting back. He misses days, and they're fighting him on that. And it's just so unfair that somebody with that type of an ailment, you know, keeps getting shut down. And that's the thing. We need that choice back to go to Cleveland or wherever we need to go.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Lissa Lucas. I'm running for House of Delegates in Ritchie County. And thank you, teachers. My dad's a retired high school English teacher from Parkersburg, from Wood County. So I was really glad that there were some folks here talking about the challenges that retirees face. And I wanted to point out some things that I heard that were a common thread, and y'all probably have heard this over and over, but I just started to wonder after all these stories of fighting with the insurance company to get things done, like how much time, if you're sick with pneumonia, or you need knee surgery, or whatever it is you need, how much time do you need to spend fighting with the insurance company? I don't think it should be much time. I think you should go, your doctor says what treatment you get that treatment. And I think that it's not a problem specific to PEIA, but there are companies that handle that a lot better than what we have right now. And I don't want teachers having to come home after a hard day, get dinner on the table, spend 2 hours grading papers, and then try to find time somewhere to write a letter or to make notes about whether they've sent something certified mail, or look through insurance papers and make sure that they're not being charged for things that have been returned to them. So that's really the thing, the bureaucracy of it. It's not just a matter of funding it, which is a big deal for sure, and yeah, let's raise severance tax, let's double it. But let's also make sure that you actually get covered, that you get taken care of, that when your doctor says you need a treatment, you go get that treatment. When your doctor says you need a medication, you get that medication, and the last thing you have to worry about is whether or not it's going to be paid for, you're going to be billed for it.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we've gone through everybody on the, oh, yes sir, come on down. Sorry, the lights were in my eyes.
My name's Joe Cheeseman. I'm nobody. I drive a school bus from Marion County. I'm just a hayseed from up there. I want to thank both of you for being here. I respect you both for it. There's 29 people on that task force. You can point out here to every one of us and you can tell us everything we're doing wrong. We need to lose weight. We need to lower our blood pressure. We need to. I ask that you turn your chairs around the next time and you implore on the other 27 of them why they weren't here. And for them to turn their chairs around and look at PEIA, tell them to trim their fat and lower their blood pressure. And then put the stats out to us. It's not WVU's fault. It's not employees' fault. That task force should have never had to bend. PEIA should be wiped out. There should never have to be a task force to fix a company. Fire them. Thank you.
I gotta go if you went.
My name is Tawny Toothman. He is somebody. He's the president of the WVSSPA in Marion County. And I'm the proud secretary who's married to him. You know, I don't know a lot about how this works. I've never been in a healthcare system quite like PEIA. There are a couple of things I know. The biology teacher, where is he? Yeah. He said something that's been on my mind for months since we've had to deal with how messed up the codes are, and I mean, people have lives. You don't have hours in a day to spend trying to figure out if somebody got a number wrong. And his point about they act like they're doing us a favor is so instinctive, isn't it? Nowhere else do you go and purchase something, or should you at least, and be treated that way. Most businesses are so glad that you're standing there ready to give them your money. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I wouldn't go anywhere and buy anything if I had to go to the state legislature and beg some politician to do it for me. So I'm with my husband. There is some other way to do this. Private business has a world of wisdom to offer this situation. But it's a shame that people who work and serve the public, like so many of you have said you've done for so many years, are begging at the feet of politicians to give you what you've worked for.
That's right.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure. Come on up to the mic.
I'm Belinda Hudson, and I teach in Harrison County. There's a couple of things I want to touch on.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Belinda Hudson, why is our premiums based on our salary? I don't get this.
It's the only one that we know of, especially.
Well, just my point, you know, we had the walkout, and I'm sitting back thinking, we're going to get $2,000 pay raise. Well, I called Mitzi Ryder at our county office today and said, hey, Mitzi, our premiums this fall are still based on the tiers as they were as of the freeze. She says, right. I said, so my $2,000 just put me into another tier. Yep. So when I first started teaching almost 30 years ago, I paid less than $30 a month for my premiums. Now I'm up to over $300 a month, and I'm going up again because of our measly $2,000 raise. So I'm looking at my son, who was 28 years old, who just got a 4% bonus and another raise. His salary increased over $6,000, and he is not getting an increase in premium. This is crazy. Something needs to be done here. Then I want to touch on, you know, I came from a family that my dad was a surgeon and a doctor, my mother was a nurse. I could have been anything I wanted to be, and I wanted to be a teacher. As a result of being a teacher, I was never going to make the income they did, so part-time I worked in his office for years, billing insurance. I was working part-time through my college years when no doctors wanted PEIA. They weren't getting paid. So now they come out, in order to get paid, they have to accept assignment from PEIA, which means my father, who also went to Harvard to be specialized, takes somebody's gallbladder out, $5,000 to $10,000 surgery at the time, but he's going to get paid $1,500 because he accepted assignment from PEIA. So this is how medicine goes. So I happen to be working part-time down there, and he has a patient, a woman, who needs a hysterectomy. She has dysplasia, which is precancerous, and it is eventually going to go to cancer. They would not approve her surgery. She had to have a second opinion. So he calls another doctor. He gets her in the next week. She has her second opinion. She needs to have a hysterectomy. PEIA still denies her. He has to get on the phone, sit for 30 minutes, and I remember that day while he was hot, and you don't want to see a foreigner hot because you don't understand anything they say. And he wanted the credentials of the person making the decision who would not allow her hysterectomy. This person was not a doctor. And he says, when I get sued, I am suing you too, because this person will get cancer. Needless to say, 10 minutes they call back. She's approved. It shouldn't have to be that way. This is crazy. So this is just my saying. My little $2,000 is already eaten up because as of the freeze, I'm still going to go up a tier. I have yet to look, because I haven't had time, to see if they put back into effect those 10 tiers, what it's going to be. And I don't feel that with Dennis and I having a combined income, if we don't get something worked out and we go back to what they had initially implemented, I don't feel I should be paying the same premium Dr. Manchin's paying, who makes 4 times my salary. You know? Well, not 4 times, but over double my salary. That's just ridiculous. All right, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Well, again, we want to thank each of you for coming out this evening, and Friday evening, there'll be a listening session in Morgantown. I think it's at the Erickson Alumni Center. And then Saturday on to Martinsburg, and then Monday night in Charleston at the State Culture Center, I believe. And so, yeah, I encourage you, if you want to notify your friends and have them show up, because again, at least Joe and I and our other colleagues are listening. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how many of them are going to be in Morgantown?
I can give you a rough idea. Let me see. Let me see who's going to be.
You mean task force members?
Yes.
Let me see.
Not that we don't appreciate you greatly, but it's sad that they've stuck you to.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. There's 5 of our 8, right? We've got 8 on our committee.
Is Carmichael one of them?
Let me see.
That's what I thought. Was he supposed to be here tonight?
He was supposed to be here. Something come up, and he did call and ask me to let everybody know that he couldn't make it.
Again, thank you all very much.